Trust doesn't break all at once. It erodes quietly, then collapses without warning. And by the time you notice, the damage is already done. But what if I told you the cracks often start with a question? One that sounds harmless, even caring. You've heard them before. You might have even fallen for one or two. They sound like conversation, but they're actually in control. From this moment forward, you won't hear them the same way again. These are questions designed to make you second-guess yourself. Designed to disarm you before you even realize what's happening. In this video, I'll show you 5 subtle questions that liars and manipulators use to make you doubt your instincts, shift the blame, and protect their lies. These tactics are common, but once you learn to recognize them, you'll stop falling for them. And you'll start protecting yourself the moment they appear. Let's start with the first one. Question number 1. Don't you trust me? To move forward, let's talk about one of the most manipulative questions ever disguised as concern. Don't you trust me? It might seem harmless on the surface, even sincere, but beneath that polished exterior lies a subtle psychological trap. One that's used to shift blame, disarm your instincts, and make you doubt your right to clarity. Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone you know well, maybe a partner who disappeared for a few hours without explanation. You calmly ask, "Where were you?" They pause, look wounded, and respond, "Don't you trust me?" Just like that, the spotlight shifts. The pressure you were gently applying, it now turns inward. You feel a twinge of guilt, as if asking a fair question was somehow a betrayal. Your gut says something's off, but your mouth starts forming an apology. You wonder, was I being too suspicious? Did I overstep? This is no accident. That guilt didn't rise from nowhere. It was planted. And the person across from you knows it. That question, so seemingly gentle, cuts like a scalpel. It's not designed to create a connection. It's designed to end the conversation before it begins. The typical reaction is all too familiar. Most people retreat. We apologize. We try to prove we do trust them, even when our instincts are screaming otherwise. We shrink ourselves to avoid tension. But here's what that does. It rewards avoidance. It teaches the other person that manipulation works. That truth can be dodged if enough guilt is applied. So the pattern repeats. You question something again, and again you're met with the same wounded tone, the same empty question. Don't you trust me? But what if there's another way to respond? What if you didn't collapse under the pressure? What if, instead of defending yourself, you held the line? This is where Stoicism offers clarity. At its core, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control: our words, our actions, and our perspective. We can't control someone's disappointment or their reaction to being questioned, but we can control whether we surrender to guilt or stand in truth. When someone asks, "Don't you trust me?" they're not looking for an honest answer. They're trying to flip the narrative. Trust becomes the issue, not their behavior. But trust in reality isn't a shield from accountability. It's a consequence of it. It's earned like respect through consistent action, not emotion, not volume, not manipulation. So, how do you respond practically? Try this. This isn't about trust. I'm asking about this specific situation. Or, trust is built by answering questions, not avoiding them. Shukr, these are simple phrases, but they're powerful. They steer the conversation back to facts. They say, "I won't be bullied by implication." Abram, it's like setting a boundary in stone. Clear, firm, immovable. I'll never forget a time I had to use this exact approach. A colleague missed an important deadline that put the whole team under pressure. When I asked him what happened, he didn't explain. He just smirked and said, "Don't you trust me?" My first instinct was to wave it off. Make peace. Move on. But something told me not to, so I looked at him and said, "It's not about trust. We need to understand what happened so it doesn't happen again." He blinked. The smirk faded. He knew the tactic hadn't landed. And with nowhere left to run, he admitted the truth. He'd forgotten and hoped I wouldn't press him. That moment didn't just clear the air, it set a new standard. It told everyone in the room that facts matter more than feelings, and clarity trumps comfort. What surprised me most wasn't that he admitted it, but how quickly the mask came off once I held the line. No yelling, no argument, no argument. Just the quiet truth standing its ground. That's the power of seeing manipulation for what it is. It loses its grip when we stop responding the way it expects us to. So the next time someone says, "Don't you trust me?" Don't flinch. Don't defend. Pause. Breathe. And say what needs to be said. Because of real trust, it's not afraid of questions. It doesn't hide behind emotion. It meets accountability with open hands. And if someone can't handle that, maybe they were never worthy of your trust to begin with. Question number 2. Why would I lie about that? Let's move on to another phrase that sounds innocent but is loaded with manipulation. Why would I lie about that? It's one of the smoothest tricks in the book. Slippery, subtle, and designed to make you second-guess your own instincts. Picture this. You bring something up, a detail that doesn't add up, a contradiction you've noticed, something that just doesn't sit right. Maybe it's a text you weren't supposed to see, or a story that's changed too many times. You're calm. You ask, "Are you sure that's what happened?" And without missing a beat, they hit you with, "Why would I lie about that?" Now pause for a second. What just happened? At first glance, that question seems fair, reasonable, even logical. But listen closely, it's a trap. A rhetorical device meant to paralyze your suspicion and make you feel like the unreasonable one. You weren't accusing, you were just asking. But suddenly you're on the defensive. Your doubt is now the problem, not their inconsistency. It works because it plays on your desire to be rational. Nobody wants to look paranoid. And this question, it cloaks deception and logic. Like a magician redirecting your gaze, it says, "Focus here on my motives, not on my actions." And just like that, your attention is off the facts and on their performance. The typical response, most people backpedal. They say, "Well, you're right. That wouldn't make sense," and drop the subject. But here's what really happened. You were talked out of your own perception. You were nudged, gently but deliberately, away from the truth. But ask yourself, does someone need a good reason to lie? Not always. People lie to avoid consequences, protect their image, or simply because they've gotten away with it before. Some lie so smoothly, they don't even think twice about it. So when someone says, "Why would I lie about that?" the better question is, why wouldn't you? This is where Stoicism provides clarity. Stoic thought teaches us to see through emotional distractions and focus on what is, not what's claimed. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, you don't have to take the bait. You don't have to accept the frame they're offering. So when someone throws this question at you, stay grounded. Don't let it throw you off balance. You can respond calmly. "I'm not questioning your motives. I just want to understand the facts." Or then it's not about whether you would lie. It's about clearing up something that doesn't make sense. These statements cut through the fog and bring the conversation back to where it belongs, on the details, not the drama. I saw this firsthand with a close friend who caught her boyfriend messaging someone he shouldn't have been. She brought it up, calm, not accusing, and his first response, "Why would I lie about that?" And for a moment, she froze. Doubt crept in. He said it with such confidence, such perfect delivery, that she almost let it go. But then she remembered something we talked about before, this exact tactic. She didn't argue. She simply said, "I don't know, but I'd still like an honest answer." "Sure what?" The shift was immediate. His body language changed. The pressure he was trying to redirect came right back. And eventually the truth came out. He had lied. And that one question, calmly asked, held the door open just long enough for clarity to step in. What stood out to her most wasn't the lie. It was how easily she almost accepted it. That's the danger of "why would I lie?" It sounds rational. It makes you doubt your instincts. But when you trust appearances over evidence, you risk trading truth for comfort. The real lesson is this. When someone deflects suspicion with clever logic, pay attention. When they respond to questions with rhetorical traps instead of honest answers, don't follow the detour. Stick with the facts or weigh in on uncertain. Stay steady. Stay still. Because the truth doesn't need to hide behind questions. And if someone's first reaction is to confuse you rather than clarify things, maybe they've already answered more than they intended. Question number 3. Can you keep a secret? Now let's talk about a question that wears a mask of trust but hides a sharp edge underneath. Can you keep a secret? At first it sounds harmless, even flattering. Someone leans in, lowers their voice, and invites you into their private world. You feel chosen, important, maybe even special. But don't be fooled. That feeling, that little thrill of being trusted, it's bait. And if you bite, you might find yourself tangled in something you never asked for. Picture this. You're at work, finishing up for the day, when a coworker pulls you aside. They glance around, speak in a hushed tone, and say, "Can you keep a secret?" Instinctively, you nod, because what kind of person says no to that, right? But then comes the catch. Don't tell anyone, but the boss is planning layoffs. I probably wasn't supposed to say anything, but I knew you'd want to know. Now you're holding a piece of information that doesn't belong to you, and worse, you're responsible for it. You didn't ask for this. You didn't agree to be part of whatever politics or drama are at play. But now, you're involved. Welcome to the web. Most people agree to keep secrets before they even know what the secret is. Why? Because we're trained to equate secrecy with loyalty. Saying no feels rude, untrusting, cold. But here's the truth. Manipulative people use that exact pressure to test your boundaries. It's not about trust. It's about control. Once you say yes, you're not just holding information, you're holding responsibility. If you later speak up, you've betrayed them. If you stay silent, you're complicit. And this is the trap. Secrecy becomes a leash. The more secrets you hold, the tighter the grip gets. But ask yourself, why did this need to be a secret in the first place? Does it protect someone, or does it serve the person telling it? Stoicism teaches us to live with integrity, to align our actions with reason and virtue. And keeping secrets that harm others or create division, that's not integrity. That's quite corrupt. Instead of falling into the trap, try this. The next time someone asks, "Can you keep a secret?" Pause. Don't say yes right away. Respond with something like, "It depends on what it is," or, "If this puts me in a tough spot, I'd rather not know." See, that's not cold. That's clarity. That's protecting your peace of mind. I've had to learn this the hard way. A few years ago, a friend came to me, voice lowered, eyes darting. "Can you keep a secret?" I said yes, like most people would. He then told me about an affair he was having with someone's wife, a guy we both knew. And just like that, I was stuck. I didn't want to lie for him, but now silence felt like a lie too. I wrestled with it for weeks. I avoided the guy whose wife was involved. I felt dirty just being in the same room. Eventually, I went back to my friend and said, "This isn't something I can carry. I didn't sign up for this." Shocked it, he got defensive, said I was judging him. But deep down, I knew the truth. He hadn't asked me for support. He'd asked me for cover. That experience taught me something valuable. Secrets aren't always shared, they're assigned. And some people use them like weapons, not gifts. Looking back, what shocked me wasn't the secret. It was how fast I accepted it without question. At that moment, those 4 words, "Can you keep a secret?" sound harmless. But they come with strings, invisible but binding. So next time you hear those words, take a moment. Ask yourself, is this going to compromise who I am? Because once you're in, it's hard to get out clean. And the people who push these secrets on you, they're not looking out for you. They're testing how easy you are to pull in. Remember this, honesty doesn't hide in whispers. It speaks clearly, openly, without needing to trap others in silence. Stoic living means staying free, not just from external chaos, but from internal guilt and divided loyalties. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially if it costs you your peace. And sometimes the strongest boundary you can set is simply saying, no, I'd rather not. Question number 4. Who told you that? Let's shift to a question that doesn't just dodge the issue, it goes on the attack. Who told you that? At first glance, it might sound like a simple request for clarification. But more often than not, it's something else entirely. It's not about the information. It's about control. This question is a classic tactic used by manipulators to protect themselves, not by addressing the issue, but by eliminating the source. Picture this. You confront someone, a partner, a manager, a friend, about something you heard. Maybe it was a lie they told. Maybe it was a secret they hoped would stay buried. You bring it up calmly, giving them a chance to explain. And instead of responding with surprise, remorse, or even denial, they narrow their eyes and say, "Who told you that?" All of a sudden, the mood changes. You feel tension rise, not because you're wrong, but because now you're the one under fire. You're not talking about the truth anymore. You're defending your right to even know it. And this is the trap. The typical reaction is panic. You hesitate. You stammer. You feel pressure to protect the person who told you, and at the same time, you feel like you did something wrong just by bringing it up. You start to shrink back, and that's exactly what the manipulator wants. Because this question isn't really a question, it's a veiled threat. It's their way of finding the leak, of isolating you from the people who keep you informed. It's damage control disguised as curiosity. Like a general trying to plug a hole in a sinking ship, they're not fixing the damage. They're hunting the one who called it out. But ask yourself, if someone truly cared about the truth, wouldn't they respond to the issue, not the source? According to Stoic thought, we must anchor ourselves in what we can control, our clarity, our integrity, and our reasoned judgment. And that means staying focused on facts, not distractions. When someone tries to divert your attention with, "Who told you that?" they're pulling you into a game of shadows, a game where truth is secondary and control is everything. So how do you respond? Stay centered. Keep your voice calm. Try saying, "That's not important right now. What matters is whether it's true," or "I've heard it from more than one person. Let's talk about the actual issue." These responses redirect the conversation, cutting off the emotional detour and bringing it back to the point. I remember a time a former boss of mine tried this exact move. I had learned from a coworker that he had misrepresented our team's numbers to upper management to cover his own mistakes. I brought it up not in an accusatory way, just with curiosity. His immediate response? "Who told you that?" Not, "That's not true." Not, "Let me explain." Just that cold, surgical question. I'll admit, I felt cornered, but I kept my ground. I said, "It doesn't matter who said it. I want to know if it's accurate." He tried to dodge. He got defensive, but by refusing to answer his question, I kept the power in my hands and he knew it. Looking back, I realized something important. People who care about the truth don't go after your sources. They go after resolution. They listen. They clarify. They own their part if there is one. But people who ask, "Who told you that?" as their first move, they care about one thing, control over the narrative. The lesson here is simple. When someone leads with this question, watch closely. Their reaction tells you more than their words ever could. If their tone shifts from calm to aggressive, if their posture tightens, if their focus narrows in on names instead of answers, then you're not having a conversation. You're walking into a silent war. Stoicism teaches us to prepare for this, to see it coming, to respond, not react, to stand our ground in the face of manipulation, not with anger, but with unshakable calm. So next time someone asks, "Who told you that?" don't answer. Not directly, not emotionally, Remember what you're there for, to seek clarity, not to hand over your allies. Focus on the truth, not the trap. And if that makes them uncomfortable, well, maybe that's the clearest answer of all. Question number 5. Don't you remember? Now we arrive at perhaps the most insidious question of them all. Don't you remember? It doesn't come at you like a threat. It doesn't raise its voice. It slips in quietly like fog rolling in under a door. But once it's in the room, it changes everything. You're no longer discussing facts. You're questioning your own memory. Your grip on reality, your version of events, starts to feel uncertain. And that's exactly the point. Picture this. You're in the middle of a disagreement. Nothing explosive, just something doesn't sit right. You say, "We never talked about that," or "I don't remember agreeing to this." And without hesitation, they look at you, calm and confident, and say, "Don't you remember?" It's subtle, deceptively simple. But that single question strikes at the core of your confidence. Because let's face it, we all forget things. We all misplace conversations. And when someone says, "Don't you remember?" with enough certainty, part of you starts to wonder, maybe I'm wrong. That's the genius of it, and the danger. It's a gaslighter's favorite move. Not because it's aggressive, but because it's quiet. Like a seed planted in your mind, it grows into doubt. Doubt in yourself, doubt in your instincts, doubt in your ability to stand firm. And most people, when faced with that question, fold. They say, "Maybe I did forget," until they backtrack. They apologize for something they don't even recall doing. Why? Because it's uncomfortable to challenge someone who sounds so sure. It feels safer to retreat than to push back. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. Memory may be fallible, but perception is not worthless. Just because your recall isn't perfect doesn't mean your gut is lying. Epictetus warned against giving up your judgment too easily. He taught that we must protect our internal world, our reason, our clarity, our trust in ourselves, because once that's gone, we're at the mercy of other people's stories. When someone hits you with "Don't you remember?" you need to recognize it for what it often is. A deflection. A way to twist the conversation and make you the unreliable one. But facts don't vanish just because someone pretends they never happened. So what do you say in response? Stay calm. Ground yourself. Try this. That doesn't match what I recall, but I'm open to looking at anything that supports it. Or, I keep track of important conversations and I don't have a record of that. Can we double check? You're not being difficult. You're being responsible. You're not fighting over memory. You're asking for clarity. I once had a relative who constantly used this tactic. Every time I'd bring up something they'd promised or something they had said, they'd smile and say, "Don't you remember?" And it was always said in a way that made me feel forgetful, insecure, like I was the one making things up. At first, I believed them. I started writing things down just to stay sane. But then I noticed something. These memory lapses always seemed to benefit them. They forgot when they owed something. They remembered promises I never made. It was never neutral, always tilted in their favor. Eventually, I started answering differently. I'd say, "I actually wrote that down, and this is what we said," or "I don't remember it that way, and until we can confirm it, I'd prefer to hold off." That shift changed everything. The manipulation stopped working. The fog lifted. What I learned is simple. Memory is flawed, but that doesn't mean your instincts are. And when someone uses "don't you remember" to confuse you, it says more about their intentions than your recollection. In the end, Stoicism isn't about winning arguments or proving people wrong. It's about staying anchored. It's about clarity over chaos, truth over convenience, reason over reaction. So the next time someone makes you question what you know to be true, pause. Breathe. Don't let confidence override consistency. Don't let tone override truth. And don't let anyone, no matter how calm, how close, or how convincing, talk you out of your own reality. Because when your mind is clear, your memory doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Now that you've seen all 5 of these questions for what they really are, don't you trust me? Why would I lie about that? Can you keep a secret? Who told you that? Don't you remember? You'll start hearing them differently. They're not just harmless phrases. They're pressure points, tools used by people who want control without accountability. And here's the truth most people never realize. These questions aren't random. They're part of a pattern, a silent strategy built to make you doubt yourself, back down, and stay quiet. But now you're not just someone hearing these lines. You're someone recognizing them. And that changes everything. You've built awareness, what Stoics would call mental armor. You're learning to separate what's true from what's convenient, to pause when others want you to react, to stand firm when they expect you to fold. That's power. Not loud, not flashy, but steady. Quiet.
Unshakable.
But knowledge alone isn't enough. What matters now is what you do with it. Will you catch yourself when these questions show up in your life? Will you slow down, respond with clarity, and protect your peace? Will you share this insight with someone else who needs it? Someone who might be caught in the fog, not even realizing they're being manipulated. Because here's the thing. When we stop falling for these tactics, they stop working. And when more of us see them clearly, we make it harder for liars to hide in plain sight. So the next time you hear one of these questions, don't panic. Don't flinch. Just remember you've seen this before. You know what it is. And now you know exactly how to respond. Choose truth over guilt, clarity over confusion, and never apologize for protecting your peace. If you found this helpful, share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to take this a step further, the video on your screen right now will build on everything we just covered. Click it and keep your guard up.